Have you ever felt the cold sting of your own kindness being turned against you? A sacred warmth you offered to the world, only to be met with the biting frost of indifference? Does it sometimes feel as though the universe itself rewards the calculating and the cold, while you, the giver, the empath, are left energetically depleted and spiritually questioning? If this message resonates with a truth buried deep within your soul, understand that this is not a sign of your failure, but of your awakening. You are beginning to perceive the true energetic laws that govern this reality. If you are ready to shed the old paradigms and embrace a higher understanding of power, type "I am awakening" in the comments below. This is a sanctuary for those who see beyond the veil, so subscribe and join the collective of souls who are choosing to master the game, not be played by it. The world, in its current vibrational state, does not reward the unguarded warmth of a pure heart. It is a dense, competitive plane of existence that responds not to sentiment, but to frequency, precision, and strategic alignment. The universe doesn't reward the emotionally volatile. It rewards the sharp, those whose minds cut through illusion like a divine blade. It rewards the patient, those who understand that time is a construct and can hold their energy in stillness until the perfect cosmic moment to act. And yes, it rewards the cold, not the coldness of a dead heart, but the cold clarity of a mind unclouded by emotional storms, a mind that operates from the tranquil center of its own power. You were conditioned by a sleeping society to believe that kindness was the ultimate currency. You were told to be helpful, to be of service, to be intelligent, but never to outshine others, to remain humble and small. These were the rules given to you to keep you predictable, to keep you in a state of manageable servitude. But I ask you to look around you now. Look at the figures who truly shape the world, who move mountains and redirect the currents of history. Are they the ones who bleed their hearts out for applause? Or are they the silent masters, the architects of reality who operate from a place of unshakable inner authority? The truth is, those who ascend to true sovereignty are those who can perceive the energetic chessboard of life. They are the ones who think 5, 10, even 20 moves ahead, not just in their actions, but in their energetic projections. They understand that a smile is a tool, a frequency to be broadcast with intention, not a mindless reaction. They use it to disarm, to charm, to create an opening, but never do they squander its power. They have mastered the sacred art of detaching emotion from decision, viewing their feelings as data, as weather patterns passing through their consciousness, but never as the captain of their ship. Their silence is not emptiness, it is a weapon, a space where others project their own fears and insecurities, revealing their entire strategy without a single word being spoken. They learn to wield their divine intelligence like a surgeon's scalpel, precise and purposeful, cutting away the cancerous tissues of deception and illusion. They use their charm not as a mask to hide behind, but as bait, drawing opportunities and information into their field. This is the path of the awakened soul, the one who understands that to navigate this world, you must first understand its hidden mechanics. Niccolo Machiavelli, a man deeply misunderstood by the masses, was a master of observing these mechanics. He was not a proponent of evil, he was a stark realist of power dynamics. He didn't admire kindness for its own sake, for he saw how easily it could be weaponized against the kind. What he admired was divine competence, the flawless execution of a plan. He respected ruthless clarity, the ability to see things exactly as they are, without the filters of hope or fear. He revered cold brilliance, the genius that burns not with chaotic fire, but with the focused, unyielding light of a distant star. He understood a fundamental law of the universe, that only the strategic mind, the one that can hold a state of detached observation, can bring order to the overwhelming tempest of chaos. He knew that raw genius alone is not power, it is merely potential. It is cold genius that becomes the force of creation, because warmth, in its raw and undisciplined form, makes you predictable. It makes your reactions easy to read and manipulate. Coldness, however that divine stillness, that unshakable core, makes you feared. Not feared in a way that creates enemies, but feared in a way that commands respect. For it signals to the universe that you are not a pawn to be moved, but a player who moves the pieces. Therefore, if you truly wish to rule the destiny of your life, not merely survive its unpredictable tides, you must evolve. You must undergo a profound spiritual metamorphosis. This world is not a playground for the naive and the sentimental. It is a grand chessboard, a divine game of frequencies and intentions. And those who play with raw, unchecked emotion will inevitably lose, not just the game, but pieces of their own soul. So, sharpen your mind. Train it to see patterns, to recognize strategies, to perceive the hidden motives behind the masks people wear. Seal your emotions. Create a sacred inner sanctum where your feelings can be honored and observed without being allowed to storm the castle of your will. Become what they never see coming. Become a force of nature, a calm and centered being who moves with purpose and precision. Become a cold genius. You must stop thinking like a victim. It is a low-frequency consciousness trap, a spiritual disease that keeps you anchored in powerlessness. A cold genius, a truly awakened soul, does not waste precious life force energy blaming the world, their past, or other people for their circumstances. He doesn't cry out to the heavens, demanding fairness from a system designed to be imbalanced. He doesn't beg for mercy, for he knows that mercy is a concession granted by those in power, and his goal is to be power. He accepts one brutal, liberating truth: nobody is coming to save him. The savior he has been waiting for is the higher version of himself he has yet to become. The victim mindset is a subtle poison. It whispers seductive lies into your spirit, telling you that your circumstances are uniquely tragic, that your pain is so profound it justifies your inaction. It romanticizes suffering, turning it into an identity that absolves you of the divine responsibility to create your own reality. But a cold genius sees this illusion for what it is: a cage. A comfortable, self-justifying cage, but a cage nonetheless. He doesn't hope for things to change. He becomes the change. He adjusts his strategy. Every sting of pain, every act of betrayal, every devastating loss, these are not punishments from the universe. They are data. They are fuel. They are the fire that burns away the dross and tempers the steel of his soul. Observe the average man. When faced with hardship, he becomes emotional, reactive. He spirals into anger, despair, or self-pity, leaking his power, broadcasting his weaknesses for all to see. The cold genius, however, does not react emotionally. When the storm hits, he becomes stiller. He studies, he watches, he learns. From the very ashes of his failures, he constructs an empire of insight. Victims cling to their stories. They romanticize their wounds, wearing them as badges of a tragic fate. Geniuses, the true architects of their lives, take the pen from the hand of fate and rewrite the ending. You must, therefore, sever the energetic cord that binds you to your suffering. Stop identifying with it. Let it go. No one in this universe truly respects weakness dressed in poetic excuses. So you were abandoned, used, overlooked? Good. That is the fuel. That is the raw material for your ascension. A cold genius doesn't perceive failure as shameful. He sees it as a case study. Every mistake, every heartbreak is filed away, dissected, and understood. Why did they betray you? What was the vulnerability in you that they exploited? What did you miss? How can this dynamic be prevented from ever happening again? This is the mindset that turns humiliation into intelligence and intelligence into an unbreakable strategy. You must remove sentiment from your decision-making. This is one of the most difficult, yet most crucial, steps in reclaiming your divine power. The cold genius understands a truth that most people will never accept. Emotions lie, results do not. Your feelings are ephemeral, colored by past traumas, future anxieties, and biological impulses. Your results, however, are the undeniable print of your actions upon the canvas of reality. You can feel intensely loyal to the wrong person, a person who is energetically draining you or subtly sabotaging you, and that feeling of loyalty will lead you to ruin. You can feel a surge of hope in a dead-end plan, a business venture, or a relationship that has no true energetic foundation, and that hope will blind you to the cliff's edge. You can even feel profound guilt for walking away from a trap, from a toxic family dynamic or a soul-crushing job, because your conditioning screams that you are being selfish. And that is the danger. Emotion doesn't care about consequences. It cares about comfort, identity, and attachment. But power, true, authentic, spiritual power, has no use for the fleeting comfort of sentiment. It demands clarity. You must train yourself, in every moment of choice, to ask one question: is this decision designed for results, or is it designed for relief? Am I doing this because it aligns with my highest mission, or because it momentarily soothes a feeling of guilt, fear, or loneliness? If the answer is relief, stop, recalibrate. Because relief is emotional, and emotions are the enemy of strategy. Let me be clear, this does not mean you become a heartless machine. It means your heart no longer leads your decisions into disaster. Your heart becomes the sacred space you protect, the why behind your mission, but your mind becomes the cold, calculating general that executes the plan. You can feel everything, the joy, the pain, the love, the rage, but you learn to act on nothing unless it aligns with your highest purpose. This is what separates the cold genius from the merely sensitive intellect. The sensitive person drowns in their own feelings, paralyzed by self-doubt and the constant need for external validation. They know what they should do, but they need everyone to feel okay with it first. The cold genius doesn't ask for emotional permission. He makes the hard call. He cuts off the friend who has become dead weight. He walks away from the lover who distracts him from his mission. He leaves the familiar job that kills his ambition in exchange for a fireproof paycheck. Because sentiment is loyalty to the past, and the past has no place in the plans of a cold genius. If you want to move forward, something must be left behind. Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a belief, maybe it's a weaker version of yourself. Whatever it is, it will not leave quietly. It will cry, it will guilt trip you. It will bring up the memories, the promises, the emotions. But if you want clarity, you cut through it. You don't negotiate with sentiment. You erase it. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved if one has to choose." Why? Because fear respects logic. Love clings to fantasy. You must choose clarity over kindness, results over regret, decisions over delays. Look at any empire, any great leader, any powerful force in history. They all made decisions that broke hearts. But those hearts would have broken them if they had hesitated. This is the dark truth no one wants to admit. Sometimes the right decision feels wrong. It hurts, but it is the only path forward. You have to be willing to hurt the people you care about if they stand in the way of what must be done. You have to be willing to let go of what you love if it's pulling you down. You have to be willing to sacrifice comfort for control, because sentiment clouds judgment. It keeps you explaining yourself to people who aren't listening. It keeps you negotiating with those who have already decided to betray you. Sentiment is the leash. A cold genius cuts it. And once that leash is gone, you become unpredictable, unreachable, unstoppable. Because no one knows what you'll do, not even your emotions. That is the power of detachment. When you no longer need emotional approval, you become dangerous. You become capable of acting in pure logic, not out of rage, not out of revenge, but out of purpose. This doesn't mean you become robotic. It means you become precise. You know exactly when to strike, and you strike without flinching. The cold genius doesn't fear hurting feelings. He fears wasting time. He fears losing momentum. He fears becoming soft in a world that devours softness. So the next time you hesitate because an action feels wrong, ask yourself, is it actually wrong, or does it just make you uncomfortable? Because greatness never grows in comfort, and clarity never comes through tears. It comes through silence, strategy, and the willingness to act like a knife in the dark, precise, silent, and cold. This is the discipline of cold genius. You do what must be done, even if it makes others uncomfortable, even if it makes you uncomfortable, because you don't answer to your feelings anymore. You answer to your future. To truly become a cold genius, you must master the art of emotional distance. This is a weapon far more potent than any sword or word. And you must learn to create this distance not just from other people, but, most importantly, from your own feelings. Emotions are useful tools, but only when you control them. The moment they control you, you become a puppet, your strings pulled by every passing slight, every fleeting desire, every whisper of fear. When they control you, you are predictable, and in the game of power, to be predictable is to be weak. Machiavelli knew this. He understood that true power does not belong to the most emotional, but to the most calculated. A ruler who reacts from a place of anger or desperation quickly becomes a pawn in the hands of more cunning manipulators. Emotional distance is not indifference, it is discipline. It is the divine ability to feel everything, the full spectrum of human experience, and yet act on nothing until the timing is perfect. This is how you gain ultimate control. Because the moment people can read you, your tells, your reactions, your insecurities, they begin to shape your behavior. You become easy to provoke, easy to guilt, easy to manipulate. But when you speak less, when you reveal nothing, when you become emotionally invisible, you become a threat. The cold genius doesn't lash out in anger. He withdraws. He listens when others shout. He watches when others perform. And when he finally speaks, his words carry the weight of an avalanche because his silence has built anticipation and uncertainty. Your silence must become sharper than their noise. This emotional distance is the very foundation of mental clarity. It allows you to separate what you feel from what needs to be done. You may feel anger, but you choose patience. You may feel desire, but you choose timing. You may feel the sting of betrayal, but you choose strategy. This restraint makes you unbreakable because no one can control you if they cannot trigger you. Machiavelli famously said that a wise ruler ought never to keep faith when doing so would be against his interests. This principle is about self-preservation, not treachery. To act in your own highest interest, you must first escape the grip of emotional loyalty. This means detaching even from your own identity, the part of you that needs to be liked, understood, or approved of. That part of you must die. For your power to be born, that needy, validation-seeking self must be sacrificed. Your power grows the moment you stop needing emotional validation from the outside world. You no longer explain your silence. You no longer defend your ambition. You no longer soften your edge to make others comfortable. Instead, you use your emotional distance to gain information. Let others talk. Let them reveal themselves. Every word they speak while you are silent is a gift, an X-ray into their soul. Their ego will demand to fill the silence, let them. And as they do, you take notes. You catalog their weaknesses. You memorize their emotional triggers. You prepare your moves with surgeon-like precision. This is how manipulation is neutralized, because you see it coming. You don't react. You redirect. You don't warn people. You don't threaten. You simply wait. And when the moment is right, your strike is so subtle, so silent, they don't even know it was you. This is the true power of emotional distance. It turns conflict into opportunity. It turns enemies into test subjects. It turns drama into a game of chess. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to yell, argue, or prove anything. Your restraint speaks louder than any outburst. And the result? People begin to respect you. Not out of love, but out of a deep-seated uncertainty. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you'll do. They don't know where they stand. And that fear, that confusion, that is control. To become a cold genius, train yourself to observe without reacting. Let every emotion pass through you like wind through steel bars, acknowledged but unhindered. Remain unshaken, untouched, unreadable. You will find that in your distance, you gain dominance. In your stillness, you become lethal, and in your silence, you become the most dangerous mind in the room. Power is not a random, chaotic force. It follows universal laws, patterns, and formulas, just as surely as mathematics or physics. The cold genius treats life as a system to be decoded. He doesn't guess. He doesn't hope it works out. He studies, he tests, he calculates. Machiavelli saw the world of politics as a grand equation, with human nature as its one constant and strategy as the one variable you can control. The average person navigates life emotionally blind, reacting to surface behaviors, believing words, and falling for appearances. But the cold genius looks deeper. He knows that behind every smile there is a motive, behind every promise there is a point of leverage, and behind every act of kindness there is a cost. So, he dissects people, not to judge them, but to understand their function in the great game. Who has influence? Who seeks approval? Who is insecure? Who is addicted to validation? He sees these things not as flaws, but as handles, as levers to move people. Just as a physicist understands the invisible force of gravity, a cold genius understands the invisible forces of psychological gravity, the pull of fear, lust, envy, greed, and status. He doesn't run from the reality of manipulation. He studies it, because only when you understand how influence works can you become immune to it. This is why becoming a cold genius requires brutal self-awareness. You cannot just study others. You must study yourself with the same ruthless objectivity. What triggers you? What persuades you? What are your blind spots? Because if you do not master yourself, rest assured, someone else will. The cold genius removes sentiment from the learning process. He doesn't take failure personally. He collects it, he classifies it, he refines his methods, like a scientist in a lab, testing every reaction, every tactic. What works? What backfires? What provokes silence, fear, respect? This is precisely why most people can never truly rise in power. They personalize everything. They think emotional intelligence means simply being nice. But in the hands of a cold genius, emotional intelligence becomes a weapon. It tells you when to flatter, when to intimidate, when to disappear, and when to deliver silence like a death sentence. You are no longer a victim of your moods. You become a master of signals. Machiavelli believed that fortune favored those who were prepared. The cold genius is always prepared. He has read the histories. He has studied the tyrants, the tacticians, the seducers, the liars, the conquerors. He doesn't just read books, he reads behaviors. He walks into a room and instantly sees the unspoken dynamics. Who wants power but lacks the skill? Who pretends to be humble but craves dominance? Who fears confrontation and will collapse under pressure? You learn to identify who is playing chess and who is merely playing checkers. Then, you decide who to ignore, who to manipulate, and who to replace. Because a cold genius is never reactive, he is positional. He places himself in rooms where he can observe before striking. He lets others reveal their hunger, their pride, their weakness. And once they have exposed themselves, he moves. No wasted energy, no unnecessary noise, just surgical precision. The lesson is simple. Treat power like a language, like a formula, like a code. Study it daily. Decode every interaction. And when you finally understand it, you will never have to chase it again. You will become a source of power, a node of influence, a mind they fear because they cannot comprehend how you are always 3 steps ahead. And the answer is simple. You studied, and they did not. That is the cold genius advantage. You want to become a cold genius? Then stop blending in. Stop being modest when the world only respects presence. You must create a reputation that doesn't whisper intelligence. It demands silence. The moment you enter a room, mediocrity fears 2 things: clarity and precision. A cold genius radiates both. He doesn't brag about his intelligence. He lets his words strike like blades, calculated, exact, and cold. He doesn't need to prove his worth. He forces others to question their own. This is not about ego. It's about engineering a reputation so sharp that others second-guess themselves before ever daring to challenge you. Machiavelli taught that it is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. This means your power must not come from the position you hold. It must come from how you carry yourself, and how quickly others perceive your superiority in your tone, your timing, your discipline. It all sends a single, terrifying message. I do not compete with the average, I erase it. This is where most smart people fail. They believe intelligence is enough. It isn't. DAUs. If your genius doesn't intimidate mediocrity, it is wasted brilliance. Mediocre people love soft minds. They want you to be humble, self-deprecating, nice. Why? Because it keeps you safe for them. But the moment you remove your filters, the moment you start speaking with clarity and executing with hesitation, you become a mirror that reflects their weakness back at them. And weak people hate mirrors. They will call you arrogant, too direct, too cold, too calculated. Let them speak. Because when you build a reputation that causes discomfort, you also create distance. And that distance protects your time, your energy, and your focus. Think like Machiavelli. Build a persona that is respected even in your absence. That means people must fear wasting your time. They must think twice before lying to you. They must tread carefully in conversations because your mind is not a playground. You are not there to make people feel good. You are there to reshape the hierarchy. Reputation isn't built by being everywhere. It's built by being strategic with visibility. Say less, do more, but let the few things you say be unforgettable. Your words must echo. Your silence must feel like judgment. This is why the cold genius isn't overly social. He chooses his moments. He appears when it matters, speaks when it's necessary, and leaves before they get comfortable. Because comfort breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds disrespect. Your coldness must feel sacred, rare, unreachable. So when you move, people remember, and when you disappear, they feel the absence like a warning. This is how you make mediocrity nervous. You don't compete with it. You overshadow it. You become the example they warn others about, the name that is spoken in whispers, the presence that lingers even after you're gone. This is not about being feared in a childish way. It's about building a psychological advantage. When others hesitate around you, you win. When they second-guess their words, you win. When they prepare twice as hard just because you are in the room, you have already won. Because the true power of a cold genius is not in how he moves, it's in how others move around him. So, how do you build this? Be disciplined when others are emotional. Be precise when others are vague. Be unavailable when others are desperate. Be brutally excellent when others are simply competent. And most importantly, never, ever explain yourself. Power that explains itself loses its edge. Let them wonder, let them assume, let them fear offending you. Let your mystery do the damage. Because reputation is more powerful than presence, and when built correctly, it works for you even when you say nothing. That is the final form of cold genius. Not just intelligence, not just control, but a reputation so sharp, it terrifies mediocrity before you ever speak. The world does not belong to the loud, the kind, or even the talented. It belongs to the cold genius, the one who feels everything but shows nothing, who calculates moves in silence while others waste time reacting, who uses pain as data, betrayal as fuel, and rejection as precision training. You stopped thinking like a victim. You silenced your emotions. You studied the patterns of power until they became second nature. You made decisions with surgical clarity, free from guilt, loyalty, or comfort. And now, you've built something most people will never understand, an identity that terrifies mediocrity without saying a word. You no longer seek validation. You don't explain. You don't flinch. You simply move coldly, cleanly, with purpose. And when people try to predict you, they fail, because you have evolved beyond emotion. You have become untouchable, unreadable. You have become the final version of intelligence, weaponized, emotionless, strategic. That is the world of the cold genius. No chaos, no noise, just results. If this video hit something real inside you, like it. If you're ready to start walking like a weapon, subscribe. This channel isn't for the average. It's for those who refuse to die soft, those who choose silence over sympathy, logic over love, and power over peace. Make your mind unbreakable. Make your presence unforgettable. And remember, you don't owe this world warmth. You owe it domination. See you in the next move.